Have you ever had a dream that felt so real, you weren't sure if you were truly awake when it ended? I've been through that, not just once, but for 4 years of my childhood. And each time that dream came back, it didn't just bring fear, it dragged a horrifying truth along with it, one I never wanted to face. Today, I'm going to share my story with you, a story that might make you afraid to sleep at night. My name is Ethan Parker. This all started when I was around 7 years old, living with my parents in a small suburban house. I don't remember exactly when the first dream happened, but I know it kept coming back, every few months, like a curse I couldn't escape. It was a half-lucid dream. I knew I was dreaming, but that didn't stop the terror from gripping me, making me feel completely helpless. In the dream, I'd always see myself lying in bed, but not through my own eyes. Instead, I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at myself, as if I were watching through a security camera. That out-of-body sensation sent chills through me. I'd try to move, to float back to my body, but I couldn't. I could only turn my head, scanning my bedroom with growing dread. The room looked exactly like it did in real life, but there were details that made my skin crawl. The digital clock on my nightstand was always counting backward, each second ticking in reverse, as if time itself was unraveling. Once I noticed that, other things started catching my eye. Taped to the walls and dresser were crayon drawings, the kind a kid my age might make. But I had no memory of ever drawing them. I wasn't the artsy type, so I couldn't have just forgotten. The drawings were always the same, a row of people holding hands, all smiling, with a smaller figure in the middle. I think it was me. They stood in front of a house with a blue roof, but what chilled me to the bone were their eyes. They weren't human eyes, but empty black voids, staring right at me. Another detail that haunted me was an old toy train of mine, always sitting in a different spot on the bedroom floor. I'd lost that train years earlier, so there was no way it could be there. But in the dream, it wasn't just sitting still. Sometimes, I'd see it slowly moving, as if someone, or something, in the shadows was pushing it along. I'd try to stay calm, to make sense of what I was seeing, but then an overwhelming urge would force me to look at the window. I'd turn my head, and just as I expected, a man appeared right outside, inches from the glass. He had short gray hair, and a deep scar ran across his left temple, like someone had slashed him with a knife. His face was blurry, but his eyes, they were glowing, a fiery red, like two embers in the dark. He didn't look at my sleeping body on the bed. He looked at me, the part of me floating near the ceiling. He smiled, a twisted, unnatural grin, and started clawing at the window. His long, sharp nails left scratches on the glass, the sound piercing through me like a knife. He whispered, his voice low and icy, "Ethan, let me in. I know you're there." That was usually when I'd jolt awake, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I'd always rush to the window to check, though sometimes I was too terrified to even move close. I don't know what I expected to find, maybe scratch marks, or a smudge from his hand, but there was never anything there. No trace, no one outside. Yet the feeling of being watched never left me. After the 4th time it happened, I told my parents, my dad, James, and my mom, Sarah. Mom said recurring dreams were normal for kids my age. Dad added that they were always just a room away if I got scared. I nodded, pretending that helped, but it didn't. Dad could tell I was still shaken, so he took my hand and led me outside to check around the house. We found nothing, no footprints, no smudges on the window. But that didn't ease my fear like I hoped it would. By then, I'd been having this dream for about a year, roughly every 3 months. It wasn't every night, but having the same dream 4 times definitely meant something, even to a kid like me. After that 4th dream, it stopped for nearly 6 months. I started to believe it was over, that the fear was just a childhood memory that would fade away. But I was wrong. One night, the dream came back, more intense than ever. Everything was the same, the clock counting backward, the drawings with their hollow eyes, the toy train creeping across the floor in the dark. But this time, something made my blood run cold. When I looked at the window, the man wasn't just standing there. The window was wide open, and he was climbing through. I could see his bony fingers gripping the frame, his glowing red eyes locked on me, his twisted grin stretching wider. He whispered, "I'm here, Ethan, you can't run from me." I screamed and woke up, but my body wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, as if something heavy was pressing down on my chest. For 5 agonizing minutes, I couldn't even twitch a finger, trapped in my own body while my mind raced. I felt colder than ever, as if the window was really open and a freezing wind was blowing through. All I could think about was that man, that he was in the room with me, standing right beside my bed. When I finally regained control, I forced myself to the window. It was locked tight, but I couldn't sleep that night. I sat huddled on my bed, clutching my pillow, waiting for dawn. In the months that followed, I started preparing myself every night, thinking about the dream to brace myself in case it returned. Oddly enough, that worked. The next time I had the dream, I was only half as scared. The time after that, I barely felt any fear at all, but the lingering unease wouldn't leave me. I decided to tell my parents again, this time with more detail. When I mentioned the man with the scar on his forehead, they froze. Dad asked, "Are you sure about the scar, Ethan?" I nodded, and the look they exchanged sent a shiver down my spine. They told me everything was fine, but I knew they were hiding something. A few days later, they sat me down and confessed. Mom explained that when I was very young, too young to remember, a man named David used to babysit me. They called him Uncle David, but he wasn't family, just an old college friend of Dad's. David was around a lot when I was a baby, especially when my parents were working. But something happened. Dad wouldn't go into details, just said they had a huge falling out and cut all ties. Dad banned David from ever coming near our family, especially me. They wouldn't tell me why, but what made my stomach churn was this: David had a scar on his forehead from a car accident years before I was born. That night, after Mom went to bed, Dad stayed with me in the living room. He said he had a theory, that my dreams were my mind processing a buried memory from when I was too young to even speak. He told me I used to be so attached to David, crying whenever he left, always wanting him to read me to sleep. But what happened in the 4th year turned everything I thought I knew upside down. One night, after waking from the dream, I glanced at the window out of habit. This time, I saw a shadow move outside, quick as a blink. I screamed for my parents. Dad bolted outside immediately while Mom held me tight. When Dad came back, he whispered to Mom that he found footprints under my window, and this time, there were scratch marks on the glass, just like in my dream. They called someone, but I didn't hear any sirens. The next morning, Dad said everything was handled, but I knew he wasn't telling the truth. I never had that dream again, but the dread never left me. I started to wonder if, every time I had that dream, someone was really standing outside my window, watching me for 4 years. Was it David, or just a stranger my mind linked to him? I don't know, and I probably never will.